It's funny how one secret can unravel everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. For me, it all began the day my family fell apart. Maya had always thought her family was like any other, loving, close-knit, and full of laughter. Her parents, always supportive, her younger brother, Alex, full of energy and mischief, and her older sister, Lila, the protector, always looking out for everyone. They were the picture of perfect harmony, or at least that's what Maya believed. But things weren't always as perfect as they seemed. Little things started to bother her whispers when she wasn't around. The way her mother would look at her father sometimes, as if hiding something, Maya brushed it off. She trusted them, trusted that they'd always be there for her. They were family. What could go wrong? But then everything changed. That one phone call, a call she wished she'd never answered, marked the beginning of something no one could have prepared for. I never imagined that one moment could change everything, but it did. Maya tried to push the nagging thoughts away, but they wouldn't go. She'd always trusted her family, but lately there was something different in the air, a tension she couldn't place. She noticed the quiet stares between her parents when they thought she wasn't looking. The way Lila started leaving the room every time Maya entered, it wasn't just the small things. It was the feeling that something was wrong, something big, but what? Her mother, a woman of grace and strength, had always been the rock of their family. She cooked, cleaned, and made everything feel right, no matter how bad the day had been. But lately, Maya had begun noticing the dark circles under her eyes, the way she'd retreat into her room, avoiding conversations. It wasn't like her mother to act this way. And then there was Alex, her younger brother. Always the troublemaker, always the one who could make her laugh when things got tough. But recently, he'd been withdrawn, distant. Maya remembered the night he sat silently in the kitchen, staring at his phone with a look on his face she'd never seen before. When she asked him if something was wrong, he just shook his head. But she knew better. Something was off. The hardest part was seeing Lila, her older sister. Lila, the protector, the one who always kept their family together. She'd always been the one Maya could turn to for advice. But lately, Lila had been more distant than ever, always too busy to talk. And Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Lila was hiding something from her. Everything came to a head one Friday evening. Maya returned home from work early, hoping to surprise everyone with a homemade dinner. The house was eerily quiet, and the usual bustle wasn't there. When she walked in, she found her mother in the living room, sitting by the window, her face pale, her eyes red. Her father, normally so strong and reassuring, was pacing back and forth. "Mom? Dad?" Maya asked, her voice shaky with unease. Her father turned slowly, his face stiff with a kind of guilt Maya had never seen before. "Maya, we need to talk." It wasn't just the tone of his voice, it was the way he looked at her. There was a heaviness in his gaze, a look that told her everything was about to change. "I never thought this day would come," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Maya's heart raced, and in that moment, she realized that the life she knew, the family she thought she understood, was about to fall apart. The words Maya had been dreading were finally spoken, but they didn't make any sense at first. Her father, usually so confident, now stood before her, lost for words. Her mother's face was buried in her hands, her body trembling. Maya felt as though the ground beneath her was shaking, but she couldn't figure out why. What could they possibly be hiding? "Maya," her father finally said, "this isn't easy to explain, but you need to know the truth. It's time you understood." He paused, as if the next words were too painful to speak. Her mother lifted her face, her eyes swollen and red, filled with a mix of guilt and sorrow. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, a knot forming in her stomach. "Maya, I don't know how to say this, but your father, he's been seeing someone else." Her mother's voice was barely above a whisper, but the words hit Maya like a slap across the face. Everything she thought she knew about her family shattered in that instant. Maya couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her mind raced as she tried to process the revelation. Her father cheating. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Maya's voice was thick with disbelief, her hands trembling at her sides. This can't be true, but the look on her mother's face told her everything. It was true. Maya could feel her world tilting off balance, but there was more, much more. Her father, unable to bear the weight of the secret any longer, finally spoke. "It's been going on for months, Maya. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I made a mistake. And it got out of control." The words felt like poison in Maya's ears. She tried to fight back the tears, but they came anyway, rolling down her cheeks, burning like acid. Her father, her hero. But the bombshell wasn't over. Maya's mother, voice shaking with emotion, added, "There's more. Your father's not the only one who's been hiding something." Mia's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes flicked to Lila, her older sister, who had been standing silently in the corner of the room, staring at the floor. Mia didn't need to hear the words. The look in Lila's eyes said it all. "Maya," Lila said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want you to find out this way, but I've been seeing someone too, someone you know." Maya's world spun faster than she could keep up. She stared at her sister, her heart racing in disbelief. "Who? Lila, who?" Maya demanded, her voice rising in panic. Her sister's eyes were filled with regret, her voice barely audible. "Alex," she said, her eyes falling to the floor. "I've been seeing Alex, and I didn't know what to do, and I don't know how to fix this." Maya felt her knees buckle beneath her. The words weren't registering, the reality too much to bear. Her sister had been involved with her own brother, her own flesh and blood. How was this even possible? Her father looked at Maya, his face filled with remorse. "I never wanted this to happen, but it's out there now. And I'm so sorry for all the pain this has caused." Maya's head spun. She couldn't comprehend it. It was too much. Too much betrayal, too much hurt, all at once. The people who were supposed to love and protect her had torn everything apart, and Maya was left standing in the wreckage. She turned away, her body shaking with emotion. She needed to get out of there, away from this nightmare. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. But before she could leave, she heard her mother's voice one last time. "Maya, please, don't walk away from us. We need you now more than ever." Maya didn't know how long she had been standing there, her heart pounding, her breath shallow. Everything around her felt like a blur. Her family, the house, the life she had known, all of it seemed like a distant memory. How could they do this to her? How could they betray her trust so completely? She ran out of the house, barely aware of where her feet were taking her. Her mind was a whirlwind of questions and emotions, each one more confusing and painful than the last. How did this happen? Why didn't I see the signs? The cold night air hit her like a slap, but it did nothing to numb the pain inside. She needed to get away, to think, but there was no escaping it. The truth was suffocating her, and no matter how far she ran, it would always follow her. She found herself at the park, the one place she used to visit when she needed clarity. Maya sat on the swing, her hands gripping the cold chains, her eyes fixed on the ground. It felt like the world had stopped moving, as if everything had frozen in place. But her mind kept racing. Her father and mother, two people she had always trusted, had lied to her for months. And then Lila, her sister, the one person she had looked up to her whole life, was involved with Alex, her own brother. How could they? It was all too much. Maya? The voice pulled her from her thoughts. She didn't have to look up to know who it was. It was Lila. "Maya, please, just let me explain," Lila begged, her voice shaking with guilt and regret. I know this is hard, but you need to hear me out. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Maya's eyes met Lila's, and for a moment, she saw the same pain reflected back at her. But the anger inside her was too strong, too overwhelming. You don't get it, Lila. Maya shouted, her voice breaking. You have no right. No right to do this to me, to us. Lila stepped forward, her eyes desperate. Maya, please. It's not what you think. We didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. And I swear, I never meant for you to find out this way. But Maya wasn't listening anymore. How could she? The betrayal was too deep, too raw. Maya felt the anger boil inside her, her emotions spinning out of control. How could they all betray her like this? I can't do this, Maya whispered, her voice trembling. I can't be part of this family anymore. The words were out before she could stop them. The finality in her voice shocked her, but they were true. Everything that had once made her feel safe, loved, and accepted now felt like a lie. I'm sorry, Lila said, her voice barely audible as she stepped back, the weight of Maya's words hanging heavily in the air. Maya didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know if her family could ever heal from this. But one thing was clear. Mia couldn't stay, not in a place where everything had been turned upside down. She needed space. She needed time. With a final tear-filled glance at her sister, Maya turned and walked away. Maya had spent the past few days in a haze, lost in the emotions that had taken over her life. She had been staying with a close friend, trying to make sense of everything. Her phone sat on the table, her family's messages and calls ignored. She didn't want to talk to them, not yet. They needed to understand the gravity of what they'd done to her, to each other. But somewhere deep down, Maya knew she couldn't avoid them forever. Sitting alone in her friend's living room, Maya stared out the window, watching the sun begin to set. The orange and pink hues reflected in her eyes, but she didn't feel peaceful. It felt as if the light outside was mocking her darkness. Was this really the end of her family? Could she ever forgive them? Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from her mother. She opened it reluctantly. Maya, we're sorry. We've hurt you in ways we can never take back. But please, don't leave us. We're trying to fix this. Please come home. Maya closed her eyes, the weight of her mother's words pressing down on her chest. Her heart ached for the family she once knew, but there was a part of her that was still angry, still raw from the betrayal. The question lingered in her mind. Could she ever trust them again? Could they really change? She sat in silence for a long time, the quiet only broken by the sound of her own breathing. Finally, Maya stood up and walked to the door. She didn't know what she was going to do next, but she knew it was time to face the people who had hurt her the most. It was time to face her family. Maya stood at the doorstep, her hand on the handle, hesitating. Inside, she knew the truth. Things could never go back to how they were, but perhaps that wasn't what she needed. She had spent so much time chasing an ideal of what family was supposed to be, that she had forgotten one important thing, the most important thing. Healing starts with forgiveness, but it begins with yourself first. She opened the door and walked in. Her mother, father, and Lila were all sitting in the living room, their faces filled with uncertainty. The weight of the silence between them was thick, suffocating. But Maya didn't know if she could find the words to fix everything. The wounds were too deep, and trust was a fragile thing. Maya, her mother stood up, her voice shaking. We don't know where to begin, but Maya didn't need them to explain. She had already made her decision. I'm not sure what comes next for us, she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. But I need to figure things out. I need to rebuild myself, and maybe we can rebuild us too. But we have to be honest with each other and ourselves. No more lies. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was understanding. Maya had set a boundary. She wasn't asking for immediate forgiveness or closure, but for time. Time to heal. Time to understand what it meant to move forward, even in the face of the hardest choices. She turned to face her family one last time before leaving the room. Her father and sister both looked at her, and although the road ahead was uncertain, they knew things would be different now. But maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. As Maya closed the door behind her and stepped out into the night, she felt a small weight lift from her shoulders. Her journey was far from over, but she had taken the first step. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, hit like and subscribe for more emotional journeys. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk. See you in the next video.